Director of Care and Outreach at the Lynden Legacy Foundation. Can everybody hear me back there? Can't hear me? How about this? Is that better? Okay. My name is Suzette. I'm the Director of Care and Outreach with Lynden Legacy Foundation. And I want to warmly welcome everyone to our 4th annual Caregiver Conference. This is our first partnership with the Neighborhood House, so we're super excited about that. It's been a joy working with Deb, the Director of Adult Day Services here at Neighborhood House. And we're so glad that each of you are here today. Thank you so much for making the time to come out here. I know that for many of you, making time for yourself can be one of the hardest things to do as a caregiver. So it means a lot that you chose to spend the day with us here today. Thank you so much. Today is all about you, your well-being, your connections, and your access to resources that can help lighten the load. So a little bit about the Lynden Legacy Foundation. Our mission is to provide compassionate support and respite to caregivers of individuals living with dementia or Alzheimer's disease. We do this through our respite grant program and caregiver conferences like this, and community events throughout the year where we raise awareness and funds for the respite grants. Everything we do comes from the heart and from experience. All of us on the team are former caregivers, or current caregivers. Our leadership team and founder know firsthand the challenges and the rewards of caregiving. So this year we're especially excited to offer complimentary on-site respite through the Neighborhood House. So you can relax and fully participate, knowing that your loved one is in good hands. This is the first time we've been able to offer this, and we hope it makes the day even more meaningful for each of you. So I'd like to introduce the founder of Lynden Legacy in just a moment. But quickly I'm going to go over the agenda. Here's what you can expect today. Inspiring presentations on caregiving, support services, and planning for the future. You'll find all of the speakers' bios in your program. I'll give short introductions before each section. You'll have opportunities to relax, connect, and recharge. A chance to explore resources from local organizations. There's a resource table in the back with Julie back there. Feel free to go and grab any information that would be helpful for you. Plus a delicious lunch and a guided tour of Neighborhood House by Deb. And then she told you the restrooms are in the back and over here to the right. So I'd love to introduce all of you to Dr. Blanch. To start us off, it's my privilege to introduce him. He's the founder of Lynden Legacy, Dr. G. Marsden Blanch. He graduated from BYU magna cum laude in 1970 and then earned his medical degree from the University of Utah School of Medicine. He went on to complete his residency in ear, nose, and throat surgery at university hospitals, right? In 1986, he founded Megadyne Medical Products, which became one of the largest electrosurgical companies in the country. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Dr. Blanch has dedicated his life to church, civic, and humanitarian service. One of his greatest joys in life has been raising his children with his wife Annette, serving together as leaders and medical advisors. They now have over 20-something grandchildren, I believe, and grandchildren. And Lynette's early onset Alzheimer's diagnosis, after her early onset Alzheimer's diagnosis, Dr. Blanch cared for her for 14 years until she passed away. So inspired by Lynette's journey with Alzheimer's disease, Dr. Blanch founded the Lynden Legacy Foundation to to provide caregivers with respite, support, and the hope that they deserve. Dr. Blanch is currently married to Sherry. She's here to make her husband. Can you hear me? Oh. She's an inspiring and beautiful woman who also understands the role of Alzheimer's disease and has great compassion for caregivers. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Blanch.
Small pulpit, but complex. I know we need the air conditioning on, but it also makes it more difficult to hear. So I'll try and... Is this off? Yeah, that's why you can't hear. It is on, and you can hear. Okay. I'll try and speak loud and clear, but if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to raise your hand or stand up and say, I can't hear. So I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for attending. This is what we have come to call our annual Caregivers Conference. This is the first time, I think, isn't it, that we've done it in conjunction with the neighborhood council. But we're so grateful for them and for all that they have done to put this together. As Suzette mentioned, my wife was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease, and I cared for her for 14 years until she passed away 2 years ago. It's a difficult journey. Just out of curiosity, how many here today are involved in the business of caregiving? Raise your hand. That's pretty much the majority. How many of you consider yourselves the primary caregiver? Raise your hand. Once again, that's most. Is there anyone here that's caring for someone who doesn't have some form of dementia? Thank you. Now I know who I'm speaking to. They're all on the same wavelength. One of my favorite stories concerns a sea captain who late one night in the darkness encounters a blinking light. He assumes it's another ship. And with his radio or blinking communication, he communicates with the other ship captain and said, please change your course 10 degrees south. And he gets the message back, please change your course 10 degrees north. And he blinks back, I'm a captain. Change your course 10 degrees south. And he gets back, well, I'm a seaman first class. Change your course 10 degrees north. Captain signals back, I'm on a battleship. Change your course 10 degrees south. And the blink comes back, well, I'm in the lighthouse. Change your course 10 degrees north. You know, I wish with all of my heart that what we're dealing with now is not a lighthouse, and that we could change that course 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 180 degrees, one way or the other, but we can't. So we are the ones who have to change our course. Now, I'm so grateful to be here. I told I have 15 minutes, but you started early. Does that mean I have an additional 5 minutes? Okay. So I'm grateful to hear that. Can I start with just a couple of definitions? I want to talk about senility, dementia, and Alzheimer's. Has anybody ever used the word senility? Anybody ever heard the word senility? It's an old word. When I was in medical school, senility was a common word. And a lot of people, as they reached their 70s and 80s, had what we call senile dementia. Remember that term, senile dementia? It doesn't exist anymore. There is no senile dementia. In those days, Alzheimer's was premature dementia, and it was very, very rare. Now, let's define, so we're not going to use the word senility everywhere. It's gone. It's not in our dictionary. But dementia is very much in our dictionary. And the definition of that is simply the cognitive inability to perform the activities of daily function. Cognitive inability to perform the daily function. Now, Alzheimer's is a special category of dementia that is characterized by amyloid plaques in the brain. 70 to 80% of patients with dementia, young, middle-aged, or old, 70 to 80% have Alzheimer's, but not everybody with dementia has Alzheimer's. Okay, we're clear on that. All right. With that, we can go forward because I'm going to talk mostly about Alzheimer's, but please bear in mind that I'm also addressing everyone else that has one form of dementia or another. Lewis Thomas in 1981 said, "Dementia is the worst of all diseases." How many in this room would agree with that? It is the worst of all diseases, not just because of what it does to the patient, but the devastating effects on families and friends. Someone with Alzheimer's affects families and friends to perhaps even a greater degree and certainly more painful. It affects those who take care of them to a greater degree than practically any other disease. I have a close friend right now who is a founder of Lynden Legacy who has dementia. And he's happy. Life is great for him. He just loved life, you know. But his wife and his children, most of us who love him, are suffering greatly from that. Well, in conclusion with this thought, once upon a time, when I was in medical school, Alzheimer's was a very rare disease. Then it became common. Now it is a crisis in this country. And with that introduction, let me share a few statistics with you. Now, this is all from a page that is published by the National Alzheimer's Association. You can get this online, alz.org. So I'm probably not going to say anything that's new. But Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia affect over 7.5 million people in the United States alone. It's an astounding number. Astounding number. And in fact, the incidence of Alzheimer's in the age group 65 to 74 is 5%. 75 to 84 is 15%. But in the age group 85 and older, 33.5% will have some form of disease. It's almost unbelievable. Alzheimer's kills more people each year with breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. In the last 20
years, the deaths from heart disease have decreased by 2%. The deaths from Alzheimer's disease have increased 142%. In this country right now, over $400 billion is spent annually in this country on Alzheimer's and dementia. By 2050, it is thought to exceed $1 trillion in cost to the country. Nearly 12 million hours are rendered by people like you who are caring for people with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, which results in $500 billion of care. Do you know how much the United States spends in research on Alzheimer's disease? Slightly over $7 billion, and there are $500 billion spent in caregiving and $500 billion to the economy every year, and we're spending $7 billion in research. But cancer only gets $9 billion, and we're second in line with that. Let's see if there's anything else I can do about this. Did you know that 80% of care in this country is rendered by females? I hate to say that because I don't know how to do, but 80% is rendered, and I don't know how that happens because Alzheimer's is twice as common in women as it is in men, and yet 80% of the caregiving is done by women. You know what that means? Is that siblings, children, neighbors, women who step up and perform the function of caregiving. So we're grateful for them, as well as men who are also giving care. I just want to talk a little bit about what's in the future for Alzheimer's. I know that we're really dedicated, this foundation is dedicated to caregiving. Because of the $7 billion that's spent in research, you know, how much is really spent comforting and caring for caregivers? Very little, practically none. So that's the goal of our foundation. And it is too, so many others. Jewish Family Service is here, Utah Alzheimer's, Utah Chapter Alzheimer's Association, Utah Energy, Neighborhood House, and we're grateful to all of you for that. But for the first time in history, for the first time in the history of mankind, we are making some steps forward in treatment and cure. We now have a blood test. I'm sure that you're aware of this. We have a blood test for Alzheimer's. Your doctor can literally order that, take it to a specific lab in Salt Lake City, and get a blood test for Alzheimer's. And do you know that it's 95% sensitive? That means only 5% false negatives. 95% sensitive. And more than 90% selective. In other words, less than 10% false positive. So it's an incredibly good study. Now it's only for Alzheimer's. It's not for other forms of dementia, because it looks at our proteins and compares it with standards. So it's really not anywhere else, any further along the line with other forms of dementia. We have drugs. For the first time, we have drugs that can actually help patients who have Alzheimer's. You know, all the other things we've had, Namenda, Aricept, you know, very few people benefit from those, and all it does is actually delay the next stage of Alzheimer's. But now we have some drugs that actually work, and they are monoclonal antibodies. When I was in medical school, we didn't know anything about monoclonal antibodies and immunotherapy. They just weren't even considered. Now we have these. I call them the Flintstone Flintstone drugs. The first in the market was lecanemab. And you call the word lecanemab. And it actually worked. And now the one we have that's the best is donanemab. And if you can say that, you get a free roll. Lecanemab and donanemab, the Flintstone drugs. And they actually work. They really do. 25% of the patients that get these drugs will either slow the disease or stop the disease. There have been individual isolated reports of people receiving donanemab who have reduced the low plaques in the brain to the point they can actually stop the drug. The important thing is this: we are on the crest of some true cures for this disease. These drugs are great, but they're not the answer. They're expensive. They have to be given by IV infusion every 4 weeks for the rest of the life of the patient, as for the most part. Well, we're just barely scratching the surface. By the time our children are there and our grandchildren are there, I can promise you we'll have a cure for this disease. We will. There are 15 to 20 to 30 to 100 drugs in line for the FDA program right now. And everyone gets better. Everyone is going to be a little bit better until we're there. And the Alzheimer's Association slogan, to see the first survivor. You're lying. Guaranteed. In the meantime, we do what we can. We care for those that we love. That are friends. It's difficult. It is perhaps one of the most difficult things I have ever done in my life. I've been around the block a few times. Before I sat down to put my thoughts together last night, Katie sent me a little quote from Dr. John Maloney. Anybody recognize the name John Maloney? Dr. Maloney. I think he's got a big internet following, so those of us in my age group probably. I just don't know who he is, but he said, grief demands a witness. What he meant by that is that grief requires a community. It requires a community. Just for help, just for somebody to shoulder the trial, just for somebody to take you on a little trip, somebody to provide the rest of care now and then. Support groups, mentors, church groups, what you're seeing around you, the community that loves you and helps you as you serve as a good leader. Final thought. Right now, I know you're tired, but rest assured that God is on. Thank you for coming. I hope this turns to be something very helpful for you and gives you an opportunity to see how everybody else is doing as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blanch. Thank you for